we're going to talk about a topic that doesn't really seem on the surface to fit with grow 'em big. And that is, today, let's talk about hunting public ground. I'm actually standing in my office for this one with the bucks over my shoulder. You can see if I were to do, you really want to make me look like a jerk, I can go ahead and do a pan of the office and show off what the better bucks that I've killed over the years. The bucks, as a side note, the bucks in my office happen to be either the biggest or the ones that mean the most to me. Well, here's a dirty little secret. About 25% of them on my walls in my office actually come from public ground. As a matter of fact, the one right over my shoulder right here does, for example. And so does the top one on the pedestal mount behind me. Why? I've went ahead and for the past 30 some years managed dirt to the point where I have access to hunt way more high quality, tightly managed ground. I don't need to hunt public, okay? But yet I still do. I do for a couple reasons. One, that is where I learn. I'll tell you what, you really want to learn how deer react to pressure? It doesn't happen on Utopia, it happens out on public ground. But here is the other dirty secret of all this. It gives me somewhere else to hunt. So on bad deer weather movement days, on days where things aren't going well on the managed ground for whatever reason, the farmer's out there doing a bunch of work that's messing up my plans, I can go hunt that public ground. And every single time I hunt public ground, I am again keeping where I hunt, the managed ground, that much more fresh. Okay, and here's the really dirty little secret in all this stuff. We go on and on and on and on and on about how pummeled, how absolutely ridiculously pummeled public ground is. My home state's Wisconsin. That's where I do the majority of my public land hunting, though I have done it in Michigan, I have done it in Minnesota, I've done it in Iowa, I've done it in Missouri, I've done it in Illinois, I've done it in a whole bunch of states and a couple provinces. The public ground here in Wisconsin, for as much as people complain about it, as I said, that buck right there, I drug off of public ground and I didn't see a single person back where I was hunting, and that is the key to successful public ground hunting for my approach. Find those spots where no one else hunts. Get in there well before anybody else even shows up to hunt for that day, and then plop your tail in that spot until you either shoot or daylight ends for that day and you gotta pack it up and go home. I figure I've got 2-3 cracks at these honey holes, those areas no one else is going in these public grounds to make it happen. So I save them for those spots there for when conditions are ripe. The other times I'm hunting public ground is simply because, as I already said, you know what? Not a real good deer weather movement day. I don't want to risk trashing my ground. So you know what? I'm going to go over here. When I do that, I don't go to those areas that no one else goes. Or I go to those areas that aren't as promising as my best. Save those honey holes on public ground for when odds are good, and you can make public ground really pay off for you. And if nothing else, utilize that public ground to take pressure off the ground you manage. None of us can ever have enough places to hunt. Now, you just plain cannot ever utilize public ground. It really isn't pummeled anywhere near as much as we make it seem these days. And at the same time, if you're willing to work a little bit harder than anybody else, you know what? I can all but promise you that 80% of that public ground out there, in my experience, has areas that no one is going except for you. Hunting public ground may not really seem to be a great fit for the Grow 'em Big series. Guess what? In my opinion, it is a perfect fit because we utilize hunting public ground to keep our managed dirt fresher, and at the same time, I'll tell you what, it is real easy to jump to all sorts of false conclusions when you're hunting utopia, because those deer, they aren't real deer. They're fantasies that some of us are lucky enough to play around with. The real deer, they're out in that public ground. You want to learn how to hunt deer? That's where you can learn real fast and real well.